Hi, and welcome to A Journey with Nate. I'm your podcast host, Neha. If this podcast resonates with you, then please like, subscribe, and share. I'm here, my first podcast, with my first ever guest, a woman who truly inspires me every single day, Dr. Lara Wehbe.
Hi, Neha.
How are you feeling?
Excited? Excited about this chat.
I'm feeling very nervous, but nervously excited. Tell me a little bit about your story. Poof!
I remember the first time we met when I asked you that question, and I usually love asking this question because it's a way to just get to the depth of things, right? You want to know, the history of people and where their journey that got them to where they are today, in a sense. But then when asked this question, I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, and I literally also gibberish like the whole way through. I was like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, one of the most um like the biggest theme for me was this kind of lack of sense of belonging since I was a child. And um it was more from within me, this, lack of belonging to my loved ones or to my country or to just to myself as well. And as a coping mechanism to that, um I navigated life in the sense where I wanted to make sense of the world, because it felt very chaotic in my internal experience. And I was very drawn to mathematics. I loved it so much. I remember coming back from school, and all I wanted to do was my math homework, and everything else I completely ignored. Because that to me, it was very like it made sense. It made sense. And then I majored in maths and I taught maths for a very long time. And I had this calling for more. And I also started along the years developing a passion for psychology. And I thought, okay, maybe this is the time to shift. And at that time, I was 30. I had this big existential crisis, just asking myself the big questions. Who am I? I had no clue who I was. What do I want from this life? Like, what am I? I just saw myself going down this very dark tunnel in my life and didn't know how to get myself out of it. And this led me to big life changes, divorcing, changing my career. Um, and that's when my healing journey started. I decided to leave my country and come here and studied psychology, started with my master's and went on to my PhD. And that was a journey in and of itself. And throughout my healing journey, I realized the trauma I was carrying. And I still was dealing with this trauma from the mind, um, with conventional therapy. And it's a beautiful modality, but I got to a place where I understood everything from the mind, and there was still something missing. There was still something that I was seeking, and when the pandemic hit, I realized that I was seeing myself in a pattern of relationship, and I just decided this was an opportunity for me to just go into celibacy and just give myself the space to really delve into my loneliness and this kind of sense of lack of belonging. Um, and it was the first time that I allowed myself to do that because all escape mechanism I've done, and I've escaped from myself by, consuming things, consuming relationships, even. And all of this was a way to distract myself from myself when I thought that I was actually doing the healing work. And probably that was great for the time, but there was a lot that was still missing. And so, um, my journey began with sound, and I just went into that world, and just that was a beautiful portal, and just the realization that sound frequencies can heal. and the transformation that I was feeling in my life, but also um, I was searching for, more embodiment in my life. And I fell on the page of, emotional release. And it was a fuck yes. My body, are we allowed to swear?
I don't think so. You don't think so. Well, we can edit out.
What's that? It was such a strong yes. Like I knew this was what I wanted to do. And initially it started for a journey for myself. Like this is what I want to do for myself because I felt that that was the missing piece that I needed. And once I went into it, I understood so much about myself that I hadn't in the past. I was depressed for a very long time in my life, and I thought that depression was sadness. Whereas I now understand that depression is a state of freeze, a state of inability to feel our sadness. And when I really understood how it feels like to experience and to feel my sadness from my body, poof, like just all the emotional experiences and express it and allow it and witnessing myself, witnessing all the parts of myself. And it was just such a beautiful transformational process for me. And because I've seen this big transition, I was like, that's what I want to do. And yeah, it just feels like this is my dharma. This is what I want to do, and that's what I've been doing. I've left almost everything else and just really focusing on this because I know the beauty of this work. And yeah, just really so much to say, but I think for now it's enough.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that's a great start. I think, firstly, I wish you were around to do my math homework because yeah, no, math was not my forte. I was so bad at it. Never really understood it. Also, in my life, I'm not entirely sure where tan, sin, cause, and Pythagoras' theorem really slot in. So maths, no. For me, I kind of felt that way after the birth of my child, Ari, who is now 2 years old, and it kind of took me a while. Like I had that existential crisis after the birth, and really felt my career wasn't me. Like I didn't feel I was connected to my body. I don't feel like I was connected to my husband, to my family. I just felt this real lack, and just didn't really enjoy life or understand where I was supposed to be. So I really do feel that. And I think there's so many women out there feeling that as well. And sometimes as well, the Western medicine practice always is like having talk therapy and more conventional therapies and again and then sometimes medication, which again works for people and that's great. But what we kind of want to try and discuss is how we can maybe move towards different types of therapies and how they would then assist people in that kind of emotional release as well. I think also the other thing that you touched on your celibacy journey is really interesting in this kind of in the world we live in because obviously as everyone kind of gets older, sometimes when they're thinking I need to get married or I need to have a child or I need to do this and I need to do the next thing, people forget that it's such a tough thing to really go inward and to, like you said, feel that loneliness and also at the same time really be able to understand what it is you want. And I think I never really fully comprehended that in my 20s. And I think it's really been in the last kind of couple of months since when we met at a retreat that I'm starting to really understand a lot more than I did understand about life. And that's okay. Everyone has their own time frame for this journey. And I think that's just a yeah, that's a wonderful thing. Um, Moving on to obviously the somatic therapy. So somatic therapy and emotional release. You touched upon conventional therapy. What do you think are the differences?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for sharing your journey as well. And just before to answer the question, I think that really, this journey is called the path of the journey of the hero, because it's not for the faint of heart. And Carl Jung calls it the shadow part or the shadow self. It's the parts in our subconscious that we don't know what we don't know. Basically, it's the structures of our reality that we don't see, that we find so hard to acknowledge and to admit about ourselves, that we kind of push really far down within our reality to navigate our life from a kind of surface level as a coping mechanism from all our experiences. And it takes a lot of courage to delve into that space. And yeah, it's not for everyone. I mean, I do wish that upon everyone, but it's not for everyone because it takes a lot of patience and a lot of courage and a lot of openness and a lot of, yeah, just determination as well. Just waking up every day and saying, hey, I choose myself. And being a mother and doing that is also like, yeah, it's beautiful. So I wanted to reflect back to you.
No,
Yeah.
thanks.
So to answer your question,
I'm a football fan.
um, yeah, it's conventional therapy have their place, right? And um, obviously we can go into the different types of, the kind of, the conventional CBT and all the others. Like for example, CBT, what the kind of main structure of it is, there's a negative thought pattern or a negative emotional pattern. How can you replace it with a positive one? Now, so it kind of deals with the surface, and the limitation of it is that it doesn't acknowledge these negative, we call, I really don't like this word negative because it just gives like this judgment on the experience that it's, different from, but we're using these terms
Yeah.
just because it's kind of more mainstream. But these, like, so this modality, for example, just doesn't acknowledge these experiences as essential and necessary part of our experiences. So like sadness has, beautiful, wise messages, and our anger as well. And all different emotions have our guidance to what our needs that, need to be expressed in these moments. And that's one example with, for example, CBT, because it's the most mainstream type of therapy. Um, but what emotional release does, or any type of somatic therapy, it works with the consciousness of the body. And so usually I give this example to, my clients when talking about what I mean by therapies that are top down and bottom up. Top down means regulating the mind to regulate the body.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom up means regulating the body to regulate the mind. And if we want to look at it from a nervous system, or like our nervous system from that perspective, we have different states. Either we're in fight or flight, or we're in freeze, or we're in to rest. That's right. And then the vagus nerve has a function to shift from one state to another.
Mm-hmm.
And what we see this as a natural state, for example, with animals, when they're in this conflict with another animal, they shake and then they regulate themselves and they're back into rest. But us human, we tend to be stuck within this kind of free state. The journey becomes learning how to regulate our nervous system, and for the vagus nerve to do what it's designed to do, rather than us being completely stuck in one state or the other. And the vagus nerve has two pathways, the afferent and afferent. So the one goes from the body to the mind, and one goes from the mind to the body. And I've discovered that there's 80% more um, neural pathways from the body to the mind than from the mind to the body, which means that when we're working with the body and regulating the body, it's much more effective than when we're working with the mind. And that's also why we say somatics is the future of therapy. Now, what I've done is I've combined both. I work with the mind and I work with the body. And so that's I work with the somatics, with the body, with the body's consciousness. within emotional release sessions, but I also, offer coaching calls. And because my background, my doctoral has been, the research that I do is in behavior change. So I assist people in, we can integrate the sessions in and of itself, but also if the person wants to work on their habits, on their sense of self, and all these kind of other aspects of, changing a behavior from maladaptive to adaptive, I can also help support. So,
Okay. And I think for me, starting in this process, obviously, I was at the retreat, and I feel like the sound bath might have been the first kind of like the kind of dipping my toe into it. So, um, that was the first sound bath I'd ever had, and you hosted it with another woman we know, Arlene. And it was really interesting because of obviously I don't know what they're called. Are they called the drums? They're just the bowls, the
balls?
bowls. And, so I felt, like, very relaxed, but I also felt like a nice, calm emptiness, which was just very interesting to me because I don't think I'd really felt that kind of nice quiet. Probably because I was away from my toddler and my husband, but well, obviously the sound bath as well. And I think I wonder how does the vibrational frequency of sound baths help in like how does that translate to people?
Yeah, that's a big one. Um, are you like? Do you know about somatic? You can look this up. It's everywhere on the internet, but um, they've done countless of experiments. So just to start with, for example, having sand on a piece of rod and emitting frequencies on the rod, and then the sand crystallizes into different geometric forms according to the frequency. Um, Same with, water. Same with other aspects or other matter. And um, and more recently, researchers have been really interested in this concept of how does sound impact mental health. And so there's all these amazing experiments happening at the moment. And I know some of my friends in the Netherlands working on this big project as well. Um, where they emit different sound frequencies to assess people's, the kind of the change in people's mental health. So sound does impact matter. It's it's now common knowledge, and so the principles that I work with and that I've been trained in is principle of tension and release. Um, and also before that, actually, just going into the differentiation between a sound bath and a sound therapy
Okay.
session. The sound bath is kind of more relaxing. It's actually like, it feels like you're being bathed with sound.
Yep.
And um, yeah, and every person receives these vibrations differently. There are people who are stuck in the mind. Some people experience things in the body. Other people experience an emotional experience arising, whatever it is. And then there's the sound therapy where you're inducing an altered state, for example, where you lose track of the reality that you're in and you're transported into a different reality.
Okay.
And that could be memories, that could be, um, just an altered state. Let's leave it at that. Each person has a different experience, but some people experienced sensations of levitation. Some other people felt that, they were seeing colors, or, just it's just really beautiful. And some would be wide asleep and just snoring away because
I
that's
think
what they
that's me.
needed. And so basically, it's the experience that is needed for you. And usually in my sound baths, I really love to talk about the witnessing, which is the best thing we can do in our best practice we can do in our lives, right? Witnessing our experience. So if I'm experiencing negative thought pattern, can I, rather than being in this loop, can I just take the third person perspective and witness this experience? Um, if I'm experiencing a negative emotion or a negative whatever, can I, rather than judging it, can I just allow it? Can I witness it?
This is exactly what I'm reading just now by Eckhart Tolle.
Uh-huh.
And obviously trying to witness those emotions and so that you can journey or even return to being and just be that third person in your body without getting pulled back into that loop is definitely difficult because obviously your mind just wants to push you back and down into sound. Like I've just really found recently that I love I think I just like to throw this in now wherever, but I like to like chanting mantras. It's just it's so great and like it's just the fact that everyone gets together and they chant and they sing and it's such a great release. And obviously as well, like we have a 40-day devotion group in Lara dances. You might see her in a supermarket near you somewhere trying to coax you into dancing with her.
It's so fun because okay, so I was attending this event once and then just sitting there and then this woman next to me says, "Oh, I know you. You're the girl who danced in the supermarket." That was fun. It's pushing.
But
But
what's so great is like
yeah,
such a joyous thing.
every one of us has our thing. And for me, it's dance. I connect to this childlike part of me, this the love of life comes through. And I have been experimenting with, sometimes we go through hardships in our lives and the world feels like it's crumbling down and the challenges that arises in our lives. And we have a choice. We have a choice to either bring ourselves back into this kind of states of play, which is so healing,
So
or to keep carrying this burden from our lives or from, what's happening in the world and suffer.
yeah.
But how can we be in the witnessing of and the feeling and also bringing ourselves back into the play? And that's something that I've been playing around. And so that's also why I wanted to do the 40-day dance devotion.
Yeah, that I've been
Yeah.
so bad at it. But my mine was obviously my podcast, and here we are. So yeah, that definitely worked out. I think the sound as well, like even at the retreat and the dancing and the singing and like it was just such a joy to come like back into even myself. And I think the thing is like I didn't even know with the vagus nerve that like your throat and your womb were connected. And I think that was really so interesting to realize that because I didn't have as much of a connection with my womb that I sometimes felt like I lost my voice. So being able to like be in these spaces where you're held by women and supported and singing and just that freely, even if I think my voice is quite bad and it would probably shatter a mirror, it's just that freeing experience of just being like, there's no judgment here. You're just singing and you're chanting and you're feeling that joy, and I think that's yeah, it's such a wonderful thing.
Yes, 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 yeah.
See what it is.
Because like from a sound therapy perspective and the whole vocal activation perspective of it is part of it because we have this instrument in our vocal cords that creates sounds and we can use it for our own benefit. But we've all most it's super common experience to be told that we're not singing right or that we sound funny or whatever it is, whatever story we've heard and internalized, which restricts our expression of our voice. But if you ask any singer, they've always started from a place of sounding not good, but they've pushed through that barrier because they've allowed themselves to express. And a big part of emotional release is sounding, is is expressing, when you hit your toe on a table, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to scream. Your body knows what it needs to do, but we've been told that, no, we shouldn't express. We shouldn't. It's wrong to express. It's not right to be vulnerable or, oh, I don't get angry. All of these kind of stories we tell ourselves that are limiting our expression
Yeah.
of our emotional states.
Yeah, and I think that was the next thing that the next day at the retreat we did
The vocal
sounds,
activation.
yeah,
Yeah,
vocal
yeah, yeah,
activation,
yeah.
which was really powerful.
It's a beautiful practice of really attuning yourself to the vibrational frequencies that your voice emits within your body.
Mm.
And just like if, for example, the sound of the the sound of the heart is ah.
Hmm.
Just chanting ah, but within like breathing in and then and just really focusing on how these vibrations feel within your body.
Hmm.
And once we go through all the different chakras and with the different tone, it really feels like a massage of the vagus nerve
Yeah.
because and you're creating more spaciousness in the body. You're creating more a bigger state of relaxation after it. So yeah, totally,
Oh,
totally.
okay. But anyway, I totally digress. But coming back to obviously somatic therapy and the coaching, and I think obviously I've had a session with you, and I think the easiest way, I suppose, is maybe have a rundown of what you think. Like in a session, we can maybe talk about. There's obviously a form that we fill out the first time as a client, and it really kind of deep dives into how you're feeling and how you felt in your life. And then I think like we're just like then coming into the actual session itself, like we had a nice cup of tea and a chat, and that was lovely, and just to really relax into it. And then obviously we started the therapy. So if you I don't know how the easiest way to express like what you kind of maybe some of the tools you use in therapy, and then we can maybe talk about my experience, and then obviously the coaching part as well, and we can touch upon that.
Yeah. Um, so before I'd like to also talk about working with our emotions and our nervous system is crucial because emotional regulation is the most important skill in life. It is. It has so many implications in our life and in all the different domains in our life. Our relationship to ourselves improve. Our inner chatter improves. Our relationship to others, how we communicate, how we manage conflicts and relationships, all these different aspects. And as I mentioned previously, um, so many of us don't feel safe to feel our emotions because we've been shut down when we expressed them when we were younger because we weren't given the space to. And this is not to blame anybody. It's more that, for example, our parents weren't taught how to do that. They don't know how to do that for themselves. Our grandparents the same. And it's now there's this big awakening of, the somatic world and how important it is and working with the nervous system and trauma informed modalities and all these things. So um, really, the principle of it is, um, how can we learn to be in the body and experience from the body and fully allow, fully witness this experience?
Yep.
It's such a simple tool. It's such a simple tool, but it can be so alien to people who have not experienced it. Um, and Yeah, I mean that's the main thing. But then sometimes we experience resistance to fully allowing or fully accepting our our experience, whether thought or emotional or even body sensation. And these resistances are welcome as well. And these are material for us to work with. We hear the concept of okay, let go. We need to let go. What does it mean? Letting go is full allowance of our experience in this moment. If I'm feeling pain in my leg, I'm not trying to resist it or change it. If I'm faced with a challenge in my life, I'm not trying to, resist it. I'm just surrendering to the wave. Okay, this is where I'm at. It's fine. And this is where we want to get to.
Hmm.
How to kind of bring all these skills into our lives. So in the session, whatever arises, whatever emotional experience that arises, that's what we're learning how to do. Can we fully allow it? And if not, if there's a resistance, how do we work with these resistances?
Yep.
And here comes a lot of different modality, which is, first of all, breath work, sounding, which we talked about, but also parts work, internal family system, inner child work. There's just so much that can be done. And every session looks different than the other. And sometimes within one client, between one session and the other, it's a completely different session. Resourcing is very important because no healing can happen without feeling safe. And
Yeah.
safe is such a commonly used word, but there is a level of safety that we need to be in for us to be receptive to all these changes. Or there's something in somatics that's called neuroception. And neuroception is your nervous system constantly looking at your environment to assess what is safety, what is danger. And it comes from our ancestors, right?
Okay.
It's what is safe what, at every single moment when looking around in your environment. Um, when I'm staring at the curtains, let's say, how is my body feeling in this moment? Is it feeling safer? If I'm looking at the light, the warmth of the light, the color red, how's my body responding to that? There's all these subconscious layers that are happening in every second that we're not aware of that are impacting us, but not only in our environment with each other,
Yep.
but also within ourselves. If I close my eyes and now focus on my internal experience, what is what is present with me that is creating this danger versus safety? So how do I get the client into this, bubble of safety within their body, within their environment, within our relationship? That's super important.
Yeah. And you do it with such ease as well. Like I feel like even from the first time I met you, I felt like I felt that kind of encompassing of like love and safetyness, like, and you give the best hugs ever.
I
Um
love hugs.
And I think that's such a powerful thing to be able to do because you're obviously someone really needs to place such a level of trust in you, and they have to do the same with conventional therapies as well to have those conversations with people. But also, it's from this perspective, you're obviously you're lying down like on a table and you're just kind of relaxing and going into what I can only perceive as kind of like a deep meditation, but you're still conscious because you're still asking questions and to close your eyes and to do that with someone that maybe you've met for the first time, like, is it is giving that level of trust. But I feel like you instantaneously do that when you sit down and you have the tea and everyone kind of will, I think anyone who knows you will just say that you're such a loving presence. So I think that's such a wonderful thing first. And I think from my experience, like, I think when you were talking me through and kind of putting me into my body, I was like, it's so interesting to that, like, this is completely new to me, being able to kind of listen to my body and to be more in tune with my body. And obviously I'm beginning this journey. But it's like it's just taking that time and being like, right, okay, you can like feel your feet and just feel your arms and feel your like feel all of those things. And as you just focus on that, you're out of your mind and you're just kind of relaxing. And the first sensation I felt was I could see myself, and I'm not a very visual person. I am a visual person, but I'm not when I try and imagine. But I could see myself like dropping into the ocean and I could feel that heaviness. But I remember as well, like my chest was trying to like buoyancy me back up and be like, no, 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 no. Like you can't go into the depths. Like, don't do that. Don't be silly. That's probably my mind kicking in. Um, but yeah, and you asked me like, "Do you want to be heavy or do you want to be light?" And I said heavy, and I surrendered to it. And the first thing you said to me was, "You have the right to exist." And I bawled my eyes out. It's a really evocative question that, like, that whole right to exist. Like, I don't think I've ever really felt that. Like that kind of I have the right to be on this planet. And the thing that I read as well is like and something that my husband Jordan had told me was you being on this planet was all by design. And that feeling of like I don't know if I have a right to be here was like it was yeah, it was massive for me. And I think the thing is I felt really safe and very held by you. Obviously, I was like crying quite a lot, and you were very like lovingly wiping my tears. And I think that's such a powerful thing as well. How do you in these kind of spaces, like as I'm starting to feel something and something's coming up, how do you then navigate onto the next part?
Yeah, I want to touch on your sharing first. And yeah, you'd be surprised how many people are struggling with this. And, this was also part of my experience. And it's interesting that when I have healed these parts of myself, that, people with these wounds have been coming through to work with me. And it's just really beautiful to witness that I'm able to help them from this place because I've kind of gone through this. But again, with this feeling of lack of belonging that I suffered from, and this sense of escapism, escaping life in whatever means possible, um, it always felt like I wasn't fully integrated here. Like I just wanted to escape. And even as a child, I had imaginary friends, and that just goes to show how much I wanted to create this alternate reality for myself to cope with life, to cope with the intensity of it. And it's only later in my adulthood that I really started embodying. And that's where the embodiment comes in. Because when we're living from the space of the mind, then and we forget that this body is part of our existence,
100%.
then we're missing on so much. Um, and we're experiencing life from a very limited perspective. And when you open up to the realities that the body can and the consciousness of the body, then so much, yeah, it just like portals and portals open up.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so you'd be really surprised on how many people struggle with this and really claiming ourselves into this reality. And that I am here for a reason.
Yeah.
And I'm born in this time for a reason
And
because I have a purpose, I have a mission to fulfill, and getting close to what is our passion in life. And I've been so passionate about, understanding the world and myself and the healing aspect, and now making it as my dharma.
Mhm.
And so each one of us has this, and until we connect with that passion of ours, and when I see you speaking about the podcast and the birth of this idea, there's a light in your eyes that I witness that is so beautiful, and everything else that comes with it, the conversations that we've had behind the scenes as well, just giving yourself this, hey, I have a purpose. I have a message to deliver. I have a this and that I want to do. And it's just really trying new things. And I went from maths to
Mhm.
psychology to sound
Yep.
to somatics, and the journey continues. And so this is your journey as well. And you're getting closer and closer every day to your passion.
Yeah.
And
And I think that's it is such a wonderful thing because I think I felt so lost and like I was a lawyer. I am a lawyer, and that is my day job. And I was so like so conscientious of like morals and justice, and then I felt like that after like 12, 13, 14 years was kind of falling by the wayside with the type of law I do. And I wasn't really feeding it from that kind of real passion of myself. And I don't think I've been feeling that for a long time in my job. And I think when we came to the retreat, I never expected that I was going to be as inspired as I was by all of the women there, and the fact that they all help women. And I think that that was just such a wonderful thing. And I think the thing for me is the bit that sparks so much joy in this is I was so inspired, and I feel like my life just changed, and I'm sure my friends would probably none of them probably know what's going on with me at like, kind of just now, but I am, like, even the friends that aren't in this kind of holistic world or in this kinda deep diving into themselves, like, they have still seen a shift in me that I am so much more positive and like, and it's just, and I'm feeling like I'm just not, I don't need to sit in kind of judgment of I can just be like, you know what? Women are all wonderful, and now I have this, I can have these conversations with women that just kind of deep dive into their lives, and it feels so nourishing to me. And I really feel like every woman should experience this. And I really feel like it's this, if this is the way that I can do it for the world, where we do have conversations, where I do meet with inspirational women like yourself, and we have these open and honest conversations about life and what you guys can do for, well, what women can do for other women, then I feel like that hopefully will inspire women to start this journey and to feel better within themselves. And I think that's just such a massive thing that now I feel like that's part of my dharma. Like,
Mhm.
is in I feel like that's what I was here to do. And I feel, and don't get me wrong, like the first part of my life in law, like I don't think it's a means to an end just now, which is great. It pays the bills, right? But I really feel like this is the kind of next stepping stone to being like, right, okay, well, I'm on this journey. I'm trying to learn more about myself and feel like safer and more joyful in my own skin. And now I'm kind of, I want other women to experience.
But also, it's the power of giving and receiving.
Uh-huh.
And through giving, receiving, through receiving, giving. And I feel like we live in one hell of a chaotic time on earth. So much happening, so much pain, so much suffering. We need more people to do the things that like is a passion for them, but also creating this inspiration in others, but also this sense of unity. We have never been so polarized and divided ever. And today, what we're witnessing with every single concept and every single domain, there is this sense of polarization
Division.
and division. And for so long, I would really not understand this. Like, why is there injustice in the world? Why is this and that? And I've come to understand that how are we going to expect justice in the world if we are not just with ourselves? We need to learn how to be compassionate with ourselves. We tend to bully ourselves into, or the inner critic that's really a big bully. We wouldn't talk to people we love this way.
100.
And then so that's not just. How do we expect the world to be just if we don't start with ourselves? And so yeah, and it all starts with bringing this polarity, this polarized opinion of self versus other, of wrong and right, of good and bad, and all these things into this sense of oneness and birthing something new.
Yeah, because if you see, and this is the thing that I've started to learn is that if I see myself in someone else, then why, like if everyone saw themselves in someone else, then what, there wouldn't be wars. There wouldn't be this division, and it wouldn't be the hatred and the issues with race. And it's such a small thing, like that you would think that the world, it just would have been taught to us, or we would have discovered it earlier rather than the way that we are all pulling apart from each other just now. So I think that's really, it's such an important thing as well to be, and I think this is why the spiritual growth as well is starting to happen in like for me, is that I'm like, I don't want to look at someone else and be like, oh, I don't like her hair, or I don't like this, or I don't like that. I want to be able to see myself in that person and say, you know what, like, I mean, that's just being lovingly aware, like, and I think it's such a very difficult thing to do, and this is part of this journey is trying to find the answers as to how to do that.
Shadow work.
Yeah.
Well, it's shadow work. And I think it's not, I think it is super important. When I like with my friends and the people that I have in my life and the partners or whatever, I want to see their shadow.
Yeah.
And I want to know if they know their shadow and if they've worked through their shadow. Because if people are in that kind of denial, then they scare me. The seeing a person in their totality and loving them still, because we're not all good, we're not all bad. And what does good and bad even mean?
Yeah.
It's seeing the person in their fullness. And this also doesn't mean that we need to accept everything and everyone because we understand them. We choose our environments. We choose how does my shadow and your shadow coexist or whatever it is. Um, but yeah, shadow
Mm.
work, and again, more embodiment, more like it brings me to this when you bring up this spiritual aspect of things, because religion has gone super far away from, psychology and science for a while, but now it feels like spirituality and science are merging again into this one. And same with the mind and the body, as seen, both were seen as different aspects of our experience. Like Descartes says, I think, therefore I am. But no,
Yeah.
that's also limiting our experience because I can sense and therefore I am. I can all the other aspects of, our experience in the body.
Eckhart Tolle talks about that as well, and he talks about your ego and your mind being stuck in the past and the future, so
mhm,
it distracts you from the present.
mhm.
And I think that is true. Like you're obviously your mind's going back to the past and reliving certain things, and then it's going to the future and saying, "Well, I need to project." Like for me, like saying, "Oh, well, I want this podcast to do well. I want any of that." I don't want to put the pressure on any of these things. I just want to like hope, put it out into the universe, and then say if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, then that's okay. And I think that's
Non-attachment.
yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
And I think that's a really strong thing.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Just coming back to my experience, I think one of the main things that I kind of felt in my experience was that
Experience of what?
my somatic therapy session with
Ah,
you
okay.
was that it's not like conventional therapy. It's not like you hit your hour limit and then suddenly it's like, bye, see you next week. And like, here's your homework. And then you're kind of left with all these kind of, I mean, you are left with feelings and questions, but that's why you have your coaching session afterwards. But it really felt like I was trying to work through after the right to exist, was the right of, like, believing in myself. And I can vividly remember, you saying, "Right, believe in yourself." And I think the first person that I saw in my visualization was my dad telling me to believe in myself. And then the next visualization when you took me through another door was I saw you at the retreat and you told me to believe in myself. Like, and then the next person I saw was you had said to kinda call in, like, past spirits and past Nehas, which obviously I absolutely love because I believe in reincarnation. Um, and and I think for me, it was kind of like I saw in my mind's eye, and again, I have a problem with visualization, was who I can only describe as Warrior Neha. And like, she was magnificent. She was like this, like, fierce, formidable, tribal leader.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I was like, yes. And she was kind of like, she was like, "Right, believe in yourself and believe yourself." And I was like, "Right, I'm taking advice from this woman and she looks amazing and it's great." And she was saying, "I'm you and you are me. Believe in yourself." And you were like still trying to like push me to say I believed in myself. And I was like, it's stuck in my throat. Like I can feel it. It's so superficially there, but I can't say the words. Um and I think then we kind of got to a wall, but the thread was because you were, I do remember you actually saying, like, go back to her, like, what is she saying now? And this is Warrior Neha. And she was just silent and she kind of just poof, disappeared. And I was like, oh, she's just gone. Cause like the same thread was coming up. It was saying, I believe in you, like, believe in yourself. And I just couldn't get to that point. And I think for me was one, I really respected the fact that you had taken the time to really push through that emotion, and to keep with it. Because I do remember at one point your hand was in my solar plexus and like you were like pushing in and then pulling out, and I was feeling this like release. And in my head, I was like, "You're a wizard, Laura." And they did. And then I got to this wall, and like there was this massive wall in front of me, and I just remember describing it to you as a Game of Thrones wall. And it was like it was massive, it was old, it was ancient, was the word I used, and you asked me to try and obviously get through it or over it, and I was trying to imagine myself get bigger, and I was trying to find a way through the wall, and I couldn't. And then you asked me to call in Warrior Neha, and she just scaled the wall like just on all fours, just scaled up the wall, jumped on the other side, and as she dropped down, it was me. And I came into what I can only describe, it was just Eden. It was just blissful. Like I could feel the waterfall on my face. I could um I could see a white tiger, which this is just amazing just thinking about it, is I could see a white tiger, which was my favorite animal when I was a kid. I could see Drogon the dragon from Game of Thrones.
And
And
that's you not either, what did you say? You don't
I don't visualize.
visualize. Yeah.
Yeah. So Drogon the dragon was there. And then also there was a T-Rex, which is basically my spirit animal. And these them from to retreat. And you were just like, I'm just gonna leave her because I just had an insane grin on my face. And I was just running wild and free and laughing with the three of them. And it was just such a lovely moment. And I was like, oh wow, is this what believing in yourself feels like to me? Um and then you were like, right, coming back to your body. And then I drove on the dragon, dropped me back into my body. But I think the things that I reflected on from that was one, what kind of tools do you utilize to kind of navigate that field? Or like what people are experiencing, because I appreciate everyone's experience is different. And also, um, I really appreciate the fact that you don't you don't kind of leave me in a state of not being able to push through the right to believe in myself. Because that was like a major thing that was obviously happening for me. So we pushed past that. So, um, I think that's a really important message.
Yeah, I mean, the session itself takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And but there's obviously the prep and the chat before, the chat after. Um, yeah, so overall, yeah, it does take all that time. But yeah, thank you for sharing your journey. Obviously, for someone who's not experienced this, might be like, what is she talking about? Yes. Right. Um, and it's also really important to highlight that every experience is unique to the person. And it doesn't mean that every person will be experiencing things like that.
Yeah.
And one way our subconscious mind understands and relates is through imagery. And that's why we dream. And it's the representation of these imagery that actually is how our subconscious is communicating to us in that way. So this is part of the experience, but it's not the entire experience in itself. But it's just beautiful how when we connect to that intuitive part and when asked the question, okay, so how if we're feeling, for example, a certain contraction in our, in our gut, okay, so how does it look like? How does it feel like? Does it have a shape or a form? When the mind is engaged, you're like, What does that even mean?
Yeah.
But then when asked that question, if you drop into the body and just see what comes up, just be with your intuition, be with that first response that comes through and flow with it. Just flow with it and see where that takes you. That I think when the experience is awesome. See, that's not the kind. It is really versatile, yeah. So, yeah, and there's another aspect also. You are very open, so I also receive other clients that are not as open, and so it's maybe harder to work with. And then there's a limit to how far we can, go. And in the coaching call, we need to have this discussion of the barriers that they're putting up, and because probably this has been their coping mechanism for as long as they can remember to be. Even like I have a client that said even when she gets a massage, she can't fully let go. And so that can be this big resistance. And so there comes the encouragement of speaking to that resistance. But sometimes it's not great to push. And actually it's this balance of when to say the right thing, when to push, when to not to push. And most of the time I'm not pushing. Most of the time I'm asking questions and I'm inviting you back into this process of witnessing your experience. And often the question comes up of, can you allow it? Can you witness it? Can you be with it?
Mhm.
And I think one of the major components here is resonance. My role is to finally to be in my master state, we call it, and to fully be in this process with you from my perspective, but fully be in that process with you. So it's not like I go into a session, I say, okay, so this is what's going to happen. This is what's, no,
Yep.
it just flows. And I'm in this intuitive part of myself as well. I'm just working with what is coming up, what is arising, and we're together going there.
Yep.
It's a dance that both you and I are going with together. And there's a sense of flow. There's literally no structure in it. But resonance is a big part. Resonance is a big part. And um yeah, just fully attuning to this body, to this process, to this even the things that you are feeling, I can sense. The things that you're, are showing up for you, I can sense. And so it just going into that journey with you. And it's almost psychedelic. So many of my clients tell me how they've done, ayahuasca or mushroom journeys or whatever. And um, it for some who have journeyed a lot, it feels like a journey. It
Mhm.
feels like this psychedelic journey, but at the same time, not as scary because they can just open their eyes and they're back. They're here.
Yeah.
So it is really a beautiful process, and it's you need to want it. You need to want to change. You need to really want to change. And there's so many people that just come through for, they're thinking that it's a quick fix or an easy journey. No, it's you also. It's me, but it's also you.
Yep.
And again, it's a dance, and it's your openness, it's your courage, it's your willingness to go deep that is guiding the session.
Yeah. And I really feel like for me, I've tried talk therapies before. And I've always felt like it's nice. Like it's nice to get things off your chest and it's nice to have someone to talk to. But at the same time, I always hit the same barrier. I always hit I know where my problems lie. I know that talking about them is essentially revisiting them, but I couldn't work out how to most through them. And I think for me, well, obviously with the somatic therapy, with you, I felt like I achieved so much more in that one session that I had ever really achieved. And I felt like one of the things that really came strongly through to me was a sense of real compassion for my father. And I think that's just been, it's those kind of feelings and trusting my body that I'm starting to realize is such an important part of life. So yeah, that was amazing. And then obviously after that, you have a coaching call, um, uh, right about a week later, or the very next week, where you kind of download your thoughts and you have a conversation about what happened.
Yeah. So I think of neo emotional release as a journey into your subconscious. You're diving into all these different parts of yourself, and you really it is a journey. And so after journeying, and I think that this is something that I can chat about for hours, but after journeying, there needs to be an integration.
Yeah.
You've traveled to this place. Okay, so what are the insights? What is the knowledge that you can bring into your daily life?
Yeah.
And that's where the work comes. That's where your responsibility comes in. And obviously, if we're doing kind of a one-off session, then I kind of bring those back into the discussion. And this is, mm, something that you can either take forward or not. But I also have a 3-month program where I can assist people
Right.
step by step into reaching these goals and integrating these goals. But the coaching call is mainly to highlight the themes of the session, of the emotional release session, and really talk about them from the perspective of the nervous system, from the perspective of, because I also survey people, as you mentioned at the start. So really bringing these in within the context of their, past experiences and whatnot. But also if there is a need for intervention for psychoeducation or for like practical tools, like embodiment tools that are needed to integrate in our daily lives or whatever it is, it's really tailored to each individual. And yeah, so there's a little bit more structure because I think about, okay, what could Neha benefit most in this circumstance with these aspects of herself that arose, and what's the discussion here and there. So that's what I bring to the table here. And obviously allowing it to flow as well for whatever needs to show up in these instances. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of the main purpose for it.
Yeah. And I think the really interesting thing about embodiment is as well, and I don't know if this is a conventional practice, but obviously you hold space so much for women. And then obviously when you need space as well, you can then go for your for emotional release from someone else.
I
So
also hold space for men.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, no,
What
I
was that the
have
podcast? No.
I have amazing male clients that are just absolute warriors, and yeah, so much love and respect for them as well and for the journey that they're on. But yeah, also for women, I have so much awe for every single person that is on this journey of self exploration and just so much love. And yeah, I also, this is something that's common, the fear of being judged and the fear of being seen. But there's just so much healing in being seen in that way. And everything's a lesson. We grow, we learn, we learn to love ourselves deeper. We learn to love others deeper. And then when you see people in their process, you have nothing but love for them.
A great thing to finish up on as well. Like, I think I obviously honor our friendship, our sisterhood, and I honor the, I really do honor on like your courage, but I also really, I'm starting to realize I really honor my own courage, which is such a wonderful thing. I really want to honor everyone's courage, obviously, as they do, if they do watch this podcast and then they share it with other people. And I really want people to be able to honor the fact that that's such an open and wonderful thing for people to do, and a very courageous thing, a very brave thing. And that leads to growth, and that leads to just returning to being, and I think that's just such an important thing. Lastly, your socials, and how to get in contact with you. If anyone is interested in obviously having a somatic therapy session with you, and then obviously you can explain a little bit more about it in an introduction call. So, so yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah. So Alchemy of Sounds with a K. That's my Instagram. And yeah, just reach out. And I usually, like you said, I usually like to get on a call because it's a way for me to get to know the person and for the person to get to know me. Because obviously, again, with resonance, not everybody is, attracted to work with everybody. There's this resonance that we need to honor. And same for us space holders in a way.
Yep.
So also it's a space for all questions to be answered, for me to know what the queries are about, and for to get a deeper understanding of what the offering is. Um, so that's definitely something that I can do.
Yeah. So thank you so much for arranging this wonderful, because this would be exactly where you would be having your somatic therapy session.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here and at Beautiful Sisters studio in the center, but the in the center it's more in the evening, and then here it's during the day.
During the day.
But I would like to say that it was an absolute honor to be on your first first podcast show, and it was such an enjoyable chat as always. Like
Yeah.
you and I, whenever we get together, it's like
blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I
Talking
feel
about
like
all the
you're probably going to definitely be like a feature on it's like just the musings of Lara and Neil.
why not?
But no, and yeah, I love you very much.
Me too.
And yeah, well, take care, everyone.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.